Thank you. Thank you for being here, Kelly and Susan. Super exciting. And we're going to talk about a subject that I think is still scary to a lot of people. I mean, I'm 15 years into my career. I know I don't look it, but yes, I am. And this
You
is
don't. I
still
want to tell you how far we're in.
this is still a very scary topic for a lot of people, which is negotiating. So, of course, everyone thinks the hard part is the application process, the interview process, but then you get into the negotiation. That's where things can get really scary. So, I'm so glad that you can share a bunch of tips with our community today, and really kind of want to start off with, talking about what is an offer of employment, if not simply salary, because that's what we think about.
It's true. And you and I were talking about this beforehand. Kelly and I see this all the time. Most people focus on that number, but it is so much more than that. And to take a step back, what we like to tell our students and our followers is that you really need to know what your values and priorities are before you start looking at an offer. So an offer can absolutely include, of course, your base salary. It can include incentive pay, which could be commission or bonuses or shared revenue in some way. It could be equity. Maybe a newer company can't afford to give you a lot of salary, but they're going to give you shares in the business and you can contribute to the success and hence your earnings that way. PTO, we were talking about how Power to Fly has unlimited PTO. Many companies in the tech industry do, where you're respected, you're expected to do your job. And in exchange for that, they respect that you'll take days off when you need them and not abuse it. It could be flexibility of schedule. And we're all used to that hybrid work from home, but it could also be the number of days you work, the schedule of those days that you work. Maybe you're sharing a job with someone. Maybe it could be the other soft benefits, like what kind of maternity leave or family leave policies are baked into the policies of the company. It could be things like title. Let's say, especially for people who are kind of early to mid-career that really are looking to move, they may not be able to pay you a lot, but they might give you that director title. That's important for you to have on your resume. It could be, if you live in a city and you're going into the office, it could be parking stipends or travel stipends. Obviously, other benefits like healthcare and insurance, retirement, all those things. So what we propose anyone do at any level is to look at the offer in its totality. Not just to fall for that number, but to look at all of those different
elements. And that is a real reality of what people do. And I think why they go straight to the number is because it's like, what do they think I'm worth? What do they think I'm worth? And you have to know what you're worth, right? You have to know what you're worth, and all of these other elements can be a part of that.
And the key is to really hone in on those things that matter to you most when you get to the negotiating. So that in its full totality is what an offer of employment is. And before you say anything to an employer, you get that in writing first.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Great point. Yeah. And I'm curious too, so you get that offer, and then how do you determine if that offer is fair to you? And I know some states like New York, where I am now, you have to list salary ranges in the job listing. But even then, it can be tricky because, a title at company A is very different from the same title at company B. So how does a candidate know if that offer is actually fair?
Right. Well, you can use some tools, right? You can use salary.com, glassdoor.com. There are many more. There's one in London. I'm working with them right now. It's called Ravio, where they're doing a lot of work in using data analytics to look at salaries across the board by jobs. I think you have to be educated in that, make sure it's a number that works for you, and know that there is always more. So now, no matter what you are offered, Rob, you are always asking for more because there is always more. And the population that Power to Fly represents, the population that we represent of women in transition, diverse candidates from a variety of backgrounds are less likely to, women are statistically far less likely to ask for more money. So having been on the other side of the desk, as an executive, you have a pool of money, right? I had a pool of money. I knew that one of my employees, this is back when I was in tech, would always ask me for more money and I would just give it to him. But I know his peer, I won't name them just in case for some reason they're watching this. I knew she would never ask for it. And I'm a woman, but I was strapped by how much money I had. So he would ask, I'd give it to him and I wouldn't give it to her because she didn't ask for it. And I'm a woman. I wanted to give it to her, but I was strapped and I didn't want to fight with him. I knew he'd be tough on me. So that's the way it works. So there's always more money. Know that. Really important factor. And then in terms of, again, is the salary fair? Well, that's kind of a question in a vacuum, because if you're looking at the full offer, that's just one piece of it. So just consider that. Consider what's most important to you. And no matter what number they offer you, you're asking for more.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you know, it's interesting because those statistics even goes to application process, because we've often heard, and a lot of the experts we've talked to, women are less likely to apply to jobs if they don't feel like they hit all the requirements. And now it's interesting to hear that even extends even to asking for raises as well. So hopefully hearing this from amazing leaders like yourselves, it's really strengthening the women out there to go, you know what? I'm going to apply to that job. I'm going to, ask for that money. I know it's scary. And then like that other scary thing is making that counter offer. And I'm curious, what are the rules for making a counter offer? When should or shouldn't a candidate make them? Because I think my fear, and I think the fear of a lot of people out there, is that the offer in general will be like yanked off the table if I say something and it can't be reached. So what are those rules for that?
Well, let's just that's a mindset, right? And where does that mindset come from?
Well, I think it's that fear that you said, even just your little giggle after Susan said, there's always more money, right? You're like, and you're always asking for more money. We just feel uncomfortable with doing that. This is a very human experience. You are putting yourself out there. It's vulnerable to go back and say, I'm worth more than that.
But let's think about the three outcomes that can happen.
Right.
Either they meet your demand, or they tell you to take a hike, or they meet you somewhere in the middle, which is usually where it goes. Let me just also say, having been a hiring manager, having been a recruiter, I'm not going to rescind an offer because you asked for more money. I've already put all this time in to choose you as my candidate.
I actually want to say this too. We encourage this because it actually shows them, especially if you're like going for a sales role, it shows them that you're willing to negotiate, that you want to like push
in any role. A company wants you to be able to negotiate on their behalf. If they're insulted because you're negotiating, that would be a shock. And it would really, to me, reveal a lot about the quality of the employer in general. But I think one thing that helps is to buy yourself some time to answer your question, and also to script it. So in general, you do not want to negotiate on the spot. So Rob, I give you an offer, and this is what you say, no matter, I'm talking entry level to C-suite. Thank you so much, Susan, for this offer. I'm really excited to learn more about it. And once I have it in writing, I will get back to you in 24 hours to discuss it. That's it.
You give yourself
so now you've got some time to breathe. Now you're also forcing them to send it to you in writing. Now there can be a problem at larger organizations. It might take, I had one of your friends that I worked with who it took them 2 weeks because
I heard that.
Right.
Yeah.
So an alternative is to say, if they say, gee, you know what, Rob, I don't have that kind of time. I mean, it's going to take us 2 weeks to get the final offer, and I need to know if you were going to take this job. That's fine, Susan. Then let's just do this. If you can send me an email with the basic elements of that offer, I'd like to know about X, Y, and Z. That'll suffice. If that doesn't work, then just ask them the questions. Or if you don't want to push it that far, Rob, can you please tell me what's the PTO process here? Will I be getting any equity? Ask these essential questions, maybe not worry about parking unless that's your top priority. And then you write it to them. You need to have something in writing. So then you can write them an email saying, thank you so much for the offer, Rob. Here are the elements we discussed today. I'll be reviewing this over the weekend. I'll get back to you on Monday. All right. You'll notice I didn't say I'll get back with an answer on Monday, because you may not have an answer. Most likely, if you're following our advice, you're coming back on Monday with a question or a request. So we're big believers in scripting these difficult conversations because they make you much more confident.
Yeah. And we actually have a downloadable that we're going to share with your
audience. Right.
It's really look at, taking a look at an offer and how do you dissect that offer and the questions that you can ask, those essential questions that Susan was talking about. So you can give that out to the audience so they can use that.
That's great. So everyone can look in the chat and find that out. And before I get to my next question, we did have a question in the chat from someone who was asking what industries offer stipends in negotiation. So is this something that either of you have heard of?
Yeah, I think it's really not industries. It's company by company. Some companies offer signing bonuses. A lot of companies offer referral bonuses. My nephew's company, I don't think they do it anymore, but when things were really tight in the labor market in 21, 22, they were offering $10,000 for any employee who referred someone who got hired. So he was like writing to his friends. He was all over LinkedIn. He's like, I can make another $10,000 a month. So just remember that there is money internally and there can be signing bonuses but I would not make a decision based on that. I wouldn't seek companies out just for that, because again, that's one piece of a very large pie.
No, that's a great point. And I know too, for especially technical companies, they often offer a stipend for during like the testing period as well, because some companies are offering, requiring quite the extensive test beforehand, and they know that that's going to be taking up a lot of the candidate's time. So definitely another question to ask at certain companies: if you have a big test, are you getting a stipend for your time there?
Yes.
I also think it would be important for them to hear about, like, if they ask you to do like a project or something.
Yeah, that's a great thing. So we see this a lot, not so much in big tech, where you might have like a provisionary process where, like you're saying, you're still being tested, you're learning. But we do see companies, especially when the labor market's a little more, it's a looser labor market. It's really just a constrained one right now because people don't know what's going on. And you'll be asked in the interview process to do a project. This happens a lot. And you need to be able to negotiate for that as well. And just to build on what you said earlier, when you negotiate an offer, you are showing the employer how to treat you before you've even started. So we've worked with students. I've had private clients who really struggle because they've been the person that's always raising their hand. I'll do that. I'll do that. I'll do that. Women tend to do this far more than men. It's called the pink work. It's the unpaid stuff. I'll bring the food. I'll clean the room. I'll make the invitation. I'll plan the party. You're not getting paid for that. So when you are interviewing and you negotiate, you are showing them, I'm not going to be that person that you can just dump extra work on. Right. So it's a really important part of the relationship at the very beginning stages. So if you're in an interview and someone says, Rob, the next step of the process is I'd like you to work on this project. We're thinking of opening up operations in South America. We're not sure which country to set it up in. So we'd like you to do some research on, market availability for product, competition, and just do, it's just a concept project. That's not a concept project, by the way. That's hard work.
Yes.
So if someone asks you to do that, and especially now, especially if you're a candidate that has any strikes against you, you are returning to work, you are young, you're pivoting, you have unconventional experience, you're not what usually the people look like that have your job, you are more likely to say, sure, I'll do that, but you won't do that anymore. You'll say, you know what, Rob? Thank you. This sounds like a really exciting project. I think it's a great way for me to show you my skills. I need to look at it and give you a proper price for what I would need to be paid for that time.
Totally. Yeah.
You have already set the stage where we're not going to take advantage of this guy.
Yeah. It's boundaries and it's teaching people how to treat you right when you're on your way in the door.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
And we had another question come in too, which is, I think, a great question that we've all had, and we've all had this question put to us, which is, what are your salary requirements? And there's always that moment where I've been in this one where I freeze. It's like, well, what am I supposed to say? And so this person is asking, should that be based on current market price, my last salary, or just say negotiable? So what do you answer when you're kind of
There's levels and who you're talking to.
It does. I love this question.
That,
so if you're talking to anybody in the early part of the process, up to, let's say most interviews have 5 interactions at least. If you're up to like interview 3 or interaction 3, you say something like this, Rob, I'm really enjoying this conversation. I'm learning a lot about the organization, but I'm really not in a position yet to name a price because I don't know enough about the role. However, if you want to give me an idea of the salary band, I can let you know if I think that would be workable within my financial needs. If you are,
I just want to point this out. Do you see how the power shifted from like the panic of like, I'm going to have to give a number to you give me the band, like you give me,
and I'll let you know.
And I'll let you know.
Reasonable.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So very often, especially again, if you look at those 5 interactions, the earlier you are, typically the less experienced the person is. So they're almost always willing to just throw that number out there, which is great. Now, as you get a little further up the line and you're dealing with maybe a seasoned manager, they may toss it back to you. They might say, you know what, Rob? I'm not really free to disclose the band right now. So I'm just looking for a number. So then what you could say is think about where you want to be, go a little higher, and say, in my past roles, I've made the equivalent of, let's say you want to make 120, right? In my last roles, I've made as much as 150. At this point, again, since I don't really know this role, I'm not sure if I'm going to need to make more or less than that, but I can just give you an idea. That's kind of where I've been hovering. But again, my decision is based on so much more than salary, because I know that a job offer is so much more. I need to learn about the culture, the benefits, the soft benefits, the hard benefits. Those will all factor in. But at this point, I'm just really trying to get to know the company to even make sure it's the right fit.
Yeah, well, and let's talk about those benefits, because that's, as you started off by saying, that's a big part of a lot of application. Used to be just medical and you got 10 days off. Now that's very antiquated. So how do you take into account those non-monetary benefits like PTO and of course medical benefits into overall salary? And can you also negotiate for more of some of those, maybe in place of a standard salary?
Absolutely.
Okay, there's a Susanism here. You have to say it.
Oh, flexibility is compensation, not an accommodation.
Yes.
So I love that.
Because very often, and a lot of your population will be looking for some type of flexibility. I mean, most people, my kids are in their 20s, they expect it. They expect to have a flexible schedule. It's not even, an ask. So when you go into these negotiations, just understanding that all of these little pieces are part of the compensation. Very often, especially if a company has a published salary band and you want more, let's say they make you the offer at the highest end of the band and you ask for more, they can't give you more, right? Their hands are tied. Then when they come back and they say, you know what, Rob, I really want to hire you. I can't offer you more than the people in the role are making already. This is the best that I can do. Then you'd say something like, well, you know what, Susan, I understand. And I really appreciate you're going to bat for me. But let's look at how we might be able to sweeten the pot a little bit by looking at some of the other parts of the offer. So a couple of things here. Number one, you'll notice I use the words let's and we. We're working together. It's not adversarial. So words really matter in these kinds of conversations.
Well, and I think just having empathy for the position that they're in takes the pressure off of you to be like, we are against each other. It's
right. It's not a fight.
They have a finite amount of money that they can dole out, and
you get that, right? So, and that's where it's important. That's why part of your homework is to really look at what are the things that are most important to me, right? Like for me, flexible schedule is paramount. I have 4 kids. They're all, out of the house now, but I still treasure that because I have a lot of things that I do. That's important to me. It would be more important for me to get a little more flexibility in my schedule than necessarily more money, especially if they couldn't offer me more money. If you really need more financial compensation, then you can look at things like equity, if it's a small company, bonus structure.
What about with your health benefits? If your spouse is carrying your health benefits, and you could give the health benefit, right? Then they can maybe give you a little stipend for that in lieu of using the full benefit plan. So absolutely, but it's really on you, the potential employee, to do your homework and be prepared. Because one of the rules of negotiation is you do it once. You can go back and forth with them, but you can't go, gee, Susan, I would like to ask for, I think $10,000 would be more a year would be a fair ask for me. I'd really like to work on that. And I'd be looking for 1 more week of PTO, assuming a company didn't offer it unlimited. When you come back to me, I can't then say, oh yeah, and then I want this too.
Yeah. Sure.
But if you come back to me and say, I can't do the PTO, but I can do the $10,000, you accept the $10,000 and you move on. You've already made your ask. Okay. It can't be because you erode trust when, oh yeah, I need this too. Oh yeah, I need that too. So you have to be prepared. You've got to look at that offer in its totality and understand this is where I'm looking for some give. And you may give them a few options. Yeah. If you can't do the PTO, I'd be looking for a stipend for travel for my train. Yeah.
And that's why that first part of what you told them to do is so important, of knowing what your wants
and that's what we're giving you. This
that becomes your compass.
Yes.
When you're trying to decide like, okay, what am I going back with that you know,
Exactly.
for that
I love it. And a lot of what we're talking about, of course, are initial job offers, but I'm curious about negotiating when you've been at a company, because things might change, your needs might change. Suddenly you become a parent and flexibility is more important to you then. So what about that kind of negotiation, like once you've been at a place for a while, like how do you bring that up? Because it's not every company necessarily has a very formal process every
Yep.
year. You're
Yep.
going through those kind of things.
Yeah.
Great question.
So yeah, it's a really important one. So again, going in the door, hopefully you've kind of established yourself as someone who's not a pushover. You should always have an annual review. We believe it should be a semi-annual review. You need to sometimes drive the ship on that and say, I'd like to have a review. You are always meeting with your manager and letting him or her know how well you're doing, what extra training you're getting, any accolades you've gotten from customers. Don't assume that your manager knows how well you're doing. They know that they have a high level. They can see whatever is a data point on a spreadsheet. They don't know all the other stuff. So you are always kind of setting the stage for getting more money. You're showing them what a valuable part of the team you are. So it's not just a one-time thing, it's evolutionary. But again, at the end of the year, when you're getting your annual review, you can counter. Now, often hands are tied there because the company's only giving a maximum of a 7% raise. And sometimes you know what that number is. So you're always going to ask, you can ask your manager, it's fair to say, is what you're offering the max that's being offered at the company this year? Because you can find that information out. And if they say yes, terrific. I was really hoping for more. What could we do? Because, for example, to use example, I'm now a parent. My expenses have really increased. I'm living in the San Francisco Bay Area where, childcare is exponentially expensive. What can we do to help me increase my earnings? Again, we're a team. We're doing this, and you set the stage because your manager knows how valuable you are.
I was just going to say, that's the key. You got to lead with, here are all the things that you love me for, right? Now, why you love me and you never want me to leave you. Right?
I'm working with my nephew right now. I have a big family. Kelly knows I'm like constantly having calls with nieces and nephews to help them because they're all like 20 and 25. And
nieces and nephews friends.
Yeah, I do a little of that too. He's totally being abused by his manager right now. And I said to him, Casey, you need to go in there and you need to say, Joe, I understand you can't give me a raise. I understand we're in a position right now that's not the right time, but I'm really struggling financially. And I know I'm your top performing guy. And I really, really want to stay here, but I need to make it work for me financially. So when you say that, you're telling him how much you love it, but you're planting that seed of doubt that you could leave. Yeah. And most of you here today or watching this video are needed more by your team than you need them. It is so costly, assuming you perform well, it is so costly to replace an employee
and onboard them and all
and hope that they do well. So so I'm a big proponent that you're always asking for more. The other thing that can help build your confidence in this is to keep your LinkedIn always updated, to always be open to new opportunities, because that will give you the confidence to ask for more where you are.
I think, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. Well, and I just wanted to say, and not to be afraid to have these conversations when a major milestone has happened in your life and there is a shift, because you want to show up and do the best job that you can. And your manager wants you to do the best job that you can for them. So being open to having these conversations, just giving yourself that permission slip to do it.
Yeah, no, this is all great. I remember in a past job we had no annual review. So when I left when I told my boss I was leaving, he was like, "You're leaving?" I was like, "I had no idea." It's like, well, because you never talked to me.
You never talked to me.
So
but this is a great example of proactively doing that along if that is the case, if you're out there right now and your company does not do that annual review, you should still be educating your employer about who you are and what you bring to that team. Yeah. And so if they don't formalize it, you formalize it.
And just to your question originally, it may not be more money you're asking for because now you have a child. It may be that flexible schedule. It may be a longer paid leave. There is flexibility in many areas. Make sure you're asking for those things that matter most to you. And they do change.
And I know we have to wrap up in a second, but I think this is a great question to kind of end on here, which is
Yeah.
someone saying, I work for a very small company. It's only about 15 people. They don't have a lot of, bylaws there. So
Yeah.
they don't get an annual performance review. And so they're really asking, how do you start a conversation with management that's not
Yeah.
like open to that conversation?
Yeah. It may not even be that they're not open to the conversation. Many companies now are started by young people that have never worked in a larger institution that kind of know you're supposed to do that. There are no laws about having to have annual reviews, but there are practices within larger companies that require them. The best thing to do is to do it. I'm a big believer in doing it with some lightness in your voice, with a smile, and that this is going to be something that benefits both of us as opposed to a burden. So I would say, one of the things that I've experienced at my other employers that I found really helpful for me and for my manager was to have monthly, quarterly, whatever you want, let's say quarterly reviews. I want to make sure that I'm doing the best for you, that I'm meeting your expectations. I want to talk to you about where I can help more. I want your feedback on where I can develop better, where I can,
insights.
yeah, all that kind of thing. So it becomes that. It's just a conversation. It doesn't require, but when you say something as I want an annual review, that it creates this feeling of, oh my God, I got to get reports. I've got to have spreadsheets. It's not that.
No.
It's a conversation, and it can be very informal. If you're in a role where you might be going to see a client with your manager, or you're in an operations review with your manager, with higher ups, whatever, it's a good time to just say, hey, I'd love to just talk for 10 more minutes, a little bit more. How do you think I'm doing? What can I do? This is where I see myself going next. Am I doing the right things to get there? All right. So don't think of it. Is it Sinmaya that asked the question? Oh, she's one of your people. Well, Sinmaya, whoever asked Sinmaya the question, it's a conversation. It's not a big deal. And the earlier and more frequently you begin those conversations, the better.
Yeah, this is amazing. And I know we have to wrap up. We're at time, but before we do, can you both let us know how we can find out more about Launch LLC? And I definitely suggest everyone checking out the helpful information that you added in the chat. But yeah, where else can we find more about you all?
Our website is www.preparetoLaunch, like the letter U.com. I think a great place to go to get some other content is YouTube. We do a monthly video a weekly
video.
Every Monday. It's all over the place. It's all about this job search. We are experts in the people in transition. So whether it's early motherhood, maternity leave, paternity leave, family leave, or I'm 50, my kids are in high school and college, and I want to go back to work. We're really good at those transitional areas.
And then the other place is LinkedIn.
Oh, yeah.
Link up with us on LinkedIn. We
Please.
have a business page, Prepare to Launch U, the letter U. You can find us there. We are, we're very active in that space.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
connect with us, please.
Yeah.
Kelly and Susan, thank you so much for being here. I mean, my mind is spinning with all these ideas, and I feel like I'm standing in my circle of power now, just hearing all these great things. So thank you so much. And yeah, everyone check them out. And Meg, I'm going to turn things back over to you.